All right, so let's get into it, man. Tonight, we're going to talk about boys and their brains and how they learn. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about how to teach your kids literacy and reading and comprehension, the boys, and how to, how to get them to be into reading. Tonight is about the brain. It's about what are these brain structures that make boys, that makes them different than girls. And so we're going to get into it. Now, when I came on, I did hear Melissa and the team talking a little bit about I guess your ability to access the documents that were sent to you. You would need these documents once you get into your groups, right? Once you get into your groups. So hopefully you guys have printed them out, or you have another device that you can look at, or you know how to like scrunch it, like shrink the screen down and have two things going at the same time. So hopefully they took you through all that tutorial on how to make that work. But tonight is about the brain and how these kids learn. Now, what's going to be interesting and a good takeaway from this is that you're gonna figure out not only how boys' brains work, but also the men in your life, right? So hopefully we get somebody from year 18 to 19 tonight, right? Year 10 to 11 tonight on how men in general think through information and why we are all about problem solving. You know, ladies, you guys would say, I just want you to listen to me. Just listen. Well, you got to just lead out with that, Linda. You got to say, I'm going to tell you something. I need you to listen. Set us up for success, right? Because we'll come in blazing saying, you know what? I know how to fix this. It's like, I don't need you to fix this. I need you to just listen to it. So I'm gonna show you what testosterone does to us and why we are trying to fix it tonight. So hopefully this gets somebody from year 5 to year 10 or 15 to 20. All right. So let me share my screen and we're going to get going. And put you guys at the top and move this bar to the bottom. All right, so tonight is part of culture, the brain, and how boys learn, the male brain, some norms. I really want you to engage in authentic learning. You guys have always done that. Attack the issue, not the person. If we are in groups, or if I say something like, please don't attack me, like attack the issue. Like Dr. Sims, I don't believe that y'all, just attack the issue, not me. And then speak your truth. So I love that. The brain. So the truth is you have to wrap your mind around the fact that boys and girls really do learn differently. There are hormones in our body that dictates that. It's either estrogen or it's testosterone. And testosterone is like an action hormone that causes you to fix things, to hit, to engage in the world in a very physical and active way. And because that is true, it can speak to why boys typically, or more so than girls, struggle in school. Because school wants you to sit and get. But testosterone in boys saying, I need to be active. I need to tap on my knees. I need to tap on my thighs. I need to tap on the desk. I need to take my paper and ball it up and throw it away like I'm LeBron James, right? And those things tend to get the young men in trouble. Parents, you get that phone call saying that he's not doing what he's supposed to do, right? Like you get these phone calls, and the boy will get to the office and he'll say, but I didn't do anything, right? Because in his mind, he really didn't do anything. He's just being a boy. Testosterone is this secret culprit that's causing him to kind of move and be about and run about. Not only at school, but in your home too. He runs around in your home. You get that phone call. You're not surprised, right? Because he's running through the house too, right? So, so you play it off and act like it's, and he's like looking at you like, why are you acting brand new, right? But boys do learn differently than girls, and you have to wrap your mind around that. Even the books and the things that we ask them to read and engage in has to be action-oriented. And you asked me, you said, well, Dr. Sims, how can a book be action-oriented? It can, right? There are books that are based on action themes and comics and those kind of things. And as boys read those things, it plays out in their brain in a very active way because of the hormone testosterone. And the same is true for the men in your life. So these are the things that happen when people don't believe this, right? When they don't take into consideration that boys actually do experience and walk through the world differently because of this hormone. This is what happens right here. Boys end up getting 70% of D's and F's. They make up 80% of the discipline problems in schools. They make up 70% of the learning disabilities. So schools would just say, you know what, they just don't get it. And they're not, because they're not sitting and getting, then they're not performing academically. And so the schools misdiagnose them as having a learning disability when it's really not a learning disability at all. It's the environment that you're creating, the learning environment that you're creating is one that is too still for them. I would say boys have, and I want you to write this down if you can. You put this on your phone, put it wherever you put it at. But here's a word I want to give you, right? This word is called verve. So think of nerve, like you getting on my nerves, but think of verve, V-E-R-V-E, verve. And verve is another word for energy or action. Boys have verve. They want to move. Most of the times, and if you think back to your own education, the teacher comes in, stands in front of the classroom, gives you information, expect you to take notes and to write. That's not how boys work. And it's even worse when they're in elementary and middle school because they really haven't figured out like the social norms of what you can and can't do, right? There are times when you have been in meetings, and hopefully this is not one of them, but there have been times you've been in meetings where things have been like, you know what, I need to get up and walk, or I need to get up and walk. But because we're adults and we've figured out how to navigate that space and how to be socially correct, we don't do it. But as elementary kids and middle school boys, nah, they jump up, they move, right? And they don't have that social correctness. They don't know what the social contract means to at this point. 80%, boys make up 80% of those who are on Ritalin, right? So this is a drug that's meant to calm boys down. Now, legitimately, there are some young men who benefit from Ritalin, but too often Ritalin has been the go-to as a default in order to calm the young men down, right? If we create home environments and learning environments that are engaging, then the boys calm down themselves. Like, how many of you have boys who play video games at home? I'm scrolling through, there we go. I'm just scrolling through all the people, right? And so when they're playing video games at home, right, they're not running throughout the house playing the video game. Like they're stationary, they're in one spot or they're in one-ish spot doing so, unless it's one of those things where they're moving around. So they have the ability to stay in one spot to engage in an activity. And the reason why they're doing with the video games, because the video games are engaging and they have their attention. But sometimes teachers don't do that. A lot of times teachers don't do that. And so the boys choose to check out and they run around, and because they're elementary and middle school, they have no investment in the social contract of this is how school should work. They don't know anything about that. And they end up getting in trouble, which leads to the discipline problems, the D's and F's, right? And the learning disabilities. Boys are also one of the years behind girls in reading and writing. And that has to do also with testosterone and how testosterone causes young men to show up in the world. Testosterone says it causes men and boys to be more visual. Listen now, I'm about to give you something free. I'm about to give you some free information. It causes young men to be more visual than emotive. Oh, I just said something. I hope you got that. That they're more visual than emotive. Now, let me just stop here and give you a quick quiz. No one told you gonna be a pop quiz. And we just on slide 2 or 3, right? Who can tell me what you think the term emotive mean? E-M-O-T-I-V-E. What does emotive mean? And nobody's wrong. And the crazy thing is that you're now like the kids in school. So when you when your kid come home, you're like, just answer the question. Don't be afraid. Just do you. I'm gonna say the same thing to you. Just answer the question. Don't be afraid. Do you. Don't nobody care what you say. So what does emotive mean? Or you think emotive mean?
It means connecting to what's happening with your emotions. It's also like that's a big reason why boys like different kinds of stories than girls. Girls like the emotive, the emotional part of something. They like lots of character development. Boys like lots of action, like you were saying. They like things to be happening. They're not focused on how people feel in the story.
Exactly. Thank you, Aaron. That is right. Testosterone causes boys to be less emotive, right, and more into action. But when you think about, like, go with me for a minute. When you think about school, when you think about the questions that your teachers have asked you in the past, or you hear your teachers ask kids, especially during the pandemic, when you can actually peer into the classroom and they were having classes online, you can actually hear what the teacher's saying. There's a common phrase, and especially in like English and social sciences and social studies, that always came up. That was a common question that teachers always asked. And that question was, so how do you feel about that? How many of you parents ask you, so how do you feel about that? How many of you wives and ask your partners, so how do you feel about that? And when you start asking questions about how do you feel about that, unless a man or a boy has done the work of really cultivating the emotive side of him, he don't feel anything about that. He's not going to answer it in the way you want him to do so, because of this thing called testosterone. And when you think about reading and writing, teachers ask these young men to write about how they feel about something, rather than, now listen now, parents, I'm about to drop some nuggets for you. I'm about to give you some free information, right? And this information is, don't ask your young men or the men in your lives in general how they feel about something. Balance it with, pay attention, lean in. Balance it with, so what would you do? So what would you do? What would you do different? What do you think about that? What do you think? See, when you ask us how do we feel about something, like you set us up for failure. Like you trap us. And when you ask your sons that, you trap them. Because when we are growing up as men, a lot of times the definition of masculinity has nothing to do with feelings at all. Your dad, I can't recall my dad sitting around and asking me how I feel about something. You know, when they're hanging out with their friends, nobody is in the circle saying, so Johnny, how do you feel about this? Well, what you gonna do about that? What you think about that? So that's free information. But one of the reasons why boys are 1 to 1.5 years behind girls in reading and writing is because testosterone in our brain, testosterone in our bodies causes us to feel. It causes us to act, not feel. Now, as we get older and we start to navigate the social contract of living in this country, like, living amongst people, that you do have to have a feeling about something, right? That you'll start to learn how to talk about feelings and how to be emotive, right? But for the most part, that's an area that women own, the emotive part. And when you think about all these things I mentioned, 70% of D's and F's, 80% of discipline problems, 70% learning disabilities, who wants to be in school? So now you may have 80% of high school dropouts. Boys make up 80% of high school dropouts. And a lot of people, listen now, a lot of people think that they are dropping out of school because they are not cognitively tuned to what's going on. And everything I mentioned to you had nothing to do with cognition, but everything to do with the impact and effect of testosterone on how boys enter and navigate and experience the world. The world. So if I'm not successful in a place, and this is generally true for men in general, if men don't feel successful in a place, they tend to leave. I'm gonna say it again. If men don't feel successful in the place, they tend to leave. And that place could be school. That place could be home. That place could be a relationship. If I don't feel successful in this place, then I'm leaving. So 80% of high school dropouts is not surprising to me, given the nature of men and boys and the impact of testosterone. You got to get to know him, testosterone. You got to get to know him. Boys are often labeled as hyperactive, aggressive, or in need of control. And I just told you why, right? If testosterone is causing us to be action-oriented, to be hyperactive, I mean, that could be misconstrued as being hyperactive, aggressive, or I need to control this cat, right? And the disconnect is even worse for African-American and Latino boys, right? Who often are being looked at as being insurmountable problems and that can't be fixed. And that's a whole different workshop. But that they experience it even worse because of the intersectionalities of gender and race. Gender and race. So we have to be able to shift from this perspective of fixing boys to allowing boys to be boys. The problem with that is that the foundational components of not only our education system, but also our society is one that typically does not tolerate boys being boys. Now, I know that there's this saying out there that this is a man's world. You know, even James Brown made a song about it. This is a man's world, right? And but it won't be anything without a woman. Y'all know the song, right? I'm gonna give it to you for free though. But there's a point in the development of a young man to where it's not a man's world. where it's not a man's world. And that typically exists, Elizabeth, in schools. And unfortunately, it also exists in homes as well, right? So we got to move from this perception of, I need to fix him. He needs to sit down. He needs to act more like his sister, or he needs to do this, to how do we allow for young men to be young men, given what we know about testosterone, given what we know about how testosterone causes men to be visual, right? And I don't know how many of you were a part of my session when I did the digital boy, right? And we talked about the dangers of excessive screen time. And we talked about how testosterone causes boys to be non-emotive and visual, which makes being on screen dangerous. Excessive time with video games, excessive times with movies that are super aggressive, that's dangerous. Because if my mode of intaking the world is primarily through visual stimulation, and if the stimulation that I get is of violence or misogyny or those things, right, then I'm going to associate my identity and who I should be with that stimuli. Now, you know, I don't know if I'm getting too academic with you guys or not. I'm telling you like it TI is. Is that okay? Is it okay? All right, good. So because of these things, because of people not knowing what they don't know, then we have this debate that often pit boys against girls and kind of sets it up as a win-lose situation, when it shouldn't be boys against girls at all. It should be boys, girls, and respect the differences, and to be able to create family environments and to be able to create learning experiences in schools that accommodate, account for, and consider the differences between boys and girls, men and women. That's the real truth, right? But, you know, we often look for convenience and we don't dig this deep. by almost every benchmark, boys across the nation in every demographic group are falling behind. Now, I'm a person who says, like, never say never. Like, I don't think there's never like an always situation. Like, you never listen to me. Really? Wife of mine, I never listen to you. Like, never, ever, ever, ever. Like, I hear you right now telling me I never listen to you. So I'm listening to you right now, right? But when I see these blanket statements about that boys are falling behind in almost every demographic category, that means that there is a systemic issue that the boy in Nebraska is no less intelligent than the boy in Florida, than the boy in North Carolina, than the boy in Colorado. Like, it's systemic. So there must be some unknown or known unknown in this case, right? We know that boys and girls are different, but what's unknown is how. So there's a known unknown and an unknown unknown. Unknown unknown is I just don't know what I don't know, right? So in this case, there's a known unknown, and I'm trying to help shed light on what that unknown is, right? Even when socioeconomic status is controlled for boys, and especially African-American Latino boys, still lag behind girls. That's because of this miscalculation of the impact of testosterone and how boys and men in general develop. Boys think school presents obstacles designed to frustrate them, right? Come into class, Billy. Sit down, Tyrone. Who you work out? John. Take these notes, Fred. Like, nothing speaks to what testosterone is asking them to do and what's controlling their minds. We ask them to read books that are slow. Then that are slow in nature, right? I'm going to stop sharing for a second and ask you a question. So, how many of you have seen or have watched Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood? Just raise your hand up if you watch Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Okay. What about Sesame Street? Got some Sesame Streeters there. Okay. Now let me ask you a question. So there was a study that Yale did, and it said that what they did was they put Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood in front of boys and girls. And they say, and they wanted to see which one that boys were attracted to, which one girls were attracted to. Then they also did the same experiment with students of color and students who are not of color, right? So let's stick to just the boys and the girls. If you think that the boys were more attracted to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood than Sesame Street, raise your hand. Or put some sort of indicator. Okay, I see you, Aisha. All right, Bianca, I see you. Tanya, I see. So boys, anybody else? Boys are more attracted to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. All right, I see you, Matthew. Jeff, all right. So how many of you think that the boys were more attracted to Sesame Street? Everybody else? All right, cool. Somebody come off of mute and tell me why you took the position you took. If you don't come off mute, I'm going to call on you.
So I think, go
Heather,
ahead.
Go ahead, Heather.
I think for Sesame Street, I think it's more hands-on, it's more interactive. They encouraged you to get up and move around more.
Okay. Anyone wants to defend Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood? Y'all leaving Mr. Rogers out there by himself with his cardigan?
No, because he's a man and the way he speaks, like it's a tone thing. So boys respond to pitch, girls do not, and Mr. Rogers simply doesn't have that pitch to or he has a pitch to match boys as opposed to the girls.
Aisha, you said something that it's a whole different workshop. I want you can you go to your screen and hit the hands up button so I can come back to that point?
Okay, like raise my hand?
Yeah, raise your hand.
Okay.
All right, then keep it raised.
Okay.
All right. So you made a whole different point for a whole different workshop, but I'm going to give you that for free, right? So the answer is Sesame Street. So for those of you who said Sesame Street, great job. And the reason why it goes back to this word I asked you guys to write down, verve. V-E-R-V-E, verve, energy, action, movement. And I just told you that testosterone causes energy, action, movement, right? It's why boys would try things that women would just not try in general, right? There are some women with what we call bridge brains, just like boys have bridge brains as well. And it's a whole different workshop. Jeez, this is why I just get going off track, because there's so much that I could show you guys, and I get geeked up about this, right? Because this is I live this. But Sesame Street was the right answer because of the movement of Sesame Street, moving around, Big Bird, the Count Dracula. I forget the name of the character who lived in a trash can. What was his name? Gramopoulos.
Oscar the Grouch.
Oscar the Grouch. That should have been easy. I don't know why I want to say Gramopoulos. I don't know who that is, but that's a whole different cartoon. But because of the movement that they did, boys were more attracted to that. And for those of you who are interested in the cultural piece, students of color are more attracted to Sesame Street as well, because homes of color tend to be more energetic and moving around and La Familia and family and and it's always something going on, right? And so that contributes. So do you think classrooms, how many of you visited your son's classrooms at school? That's one screen. Let me go over here. All right. So when you visit your son's classrooms, do they resemble Mr. Rogers' neighborhood a little bit more, or do they resemble Sesame Street?
Sesame Street.
Sesame Street. What else? Anybody got some Mr. Rogers' neighborhood where your sons hang out at?
My kid's classroom was a little bit mixed of both. So his kindergarten class was definitely Sesame Street. Now he's in first grade. He's in a small school. There's only 5 kids in his class, 3 boys, 2 girls. So they kind of have it balanced. You definitely see color and things to do, but then you also have the more calmer, because they've got the girls and they just a little more, it's energy, but there's still a mellow undertone in there.
So you can tell the difference between what estrogen does to someone versus what testosterone does.
Yes.
Right? Now that I'm illuminating this. Now here's it. So a lot of you said Sesame Street, and that's great. I love to see that, right? Because that does lend itself to the way boys learn. But here's the problem. And don't tell your teachers this. Don't tell your teachers this. Is anybody on here a teacher? Okay. All right, Stephanie, I see you. It's Tanya, I see you. I talk to y'all all across the country. Anybody else a teacher?
And you have a lot of homeschool moms on here who are also teachers.
Who's the homeschool mom? Raise your hand, homeschool mom. All right, we got new teachers to the profession. All right, so don't tell teachers this. When they create these Sesame Street moments, I'm going to whisper this. Few teachers know how to control it. I just said something. Few teachers know how to control it. It gets out of control. And when it gets out of control, boys get in trouble. You get the phone call, right? Something's going on, right? So I've worked across this country training teachers on exactly how to allow boys to be boys and create learning experiences that are considered of testosterone and movement, because that's what life is. Life is movement. Life is rarely sit and get, right? And that's a whole nother workshop, how schools are so disconnected to the reality of life, but it should be a microcosm of life. That's a whole nother thing. Now back to Aisha. So Aisha, tell me your point again.
About the pitch.
About the pitch.
That boys don't respond to pitch, or they find it annoying, or they're something, whereas girls react positively to pitch. Boys respond less positive than girls do.
Now, you can put your hand down now. So I'm going to tell all you teachers and all you new teachers and parents this fact. Boys, listen now. I need you to listen. All right. I see some of you trying to cook dinner. Listen. Boys hear lower tones better than higher tones. So as a teacher, as a mom, as a parent with a high voice, the louder you get, the higher your pitch gets, the more young men, the bodies of them, the testosterone tunes you out. So if you want to get your husband's attention or your partner's attention or your boyfriend's attention or whatever, women, call them up and say, listen, now this is what I want to talk to you about. Like, get low on them, right? First of all, they're going to be surprised. Like, what are you talking about? Right. Then you got them, right? Like, why are you talking like that? But there's a scientific fact that boys hear higher tones and pitches a lot less than they do lower tones. The problem is when we get upset, our pitch gets a little bit higher, right? Did you hear what I just said? I was talking to you, right? So all those things lead back to what I was talking about earlier in terms of boys dropping out of school early, but how boys are reading, you know, a year and a year and a half behind. Listen, it's not that boys are less intelligent than girls. It's not. I think we have been ignoring a severe undercurrent that's sweeping them away, that's sweeping you away. And that is the mind and the brain of boys and what testosterone does to it. Oh, give the boys a break. Give the men in your life a break, right? Try to understand them a little bit more, right? You just don't understand me. Well, you just don't understand me. Like, let's just have this conversation, okay? All right, I'm done with that, but that was all free information. Let me share my screen again.
Can I ask a question? When you say they don't hear higher tones, do you mean like physically don't hear them?
They physically don't hear higher tones as well as they do lower tones. Physically. And that's because of testosterone. Oh, this testosterone, we should be paying rent. I'm serious. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. Go do your research, figure it out. Like it's a big deal. Oh, man, I just got so many thoughts running through my head, because if people understood the impact of testosterone, then classrooms would not be designed at the way they are. Relationships would be a little bit more considerate. People understand what estrogen does, what testosterone does, right? Those things. So do your research on that, right? If you want to think through creating learning environments, or how do I be better advocates or understand my young men just a little bit better, because those hormones guide the way that boys see the world. Now, I alluded to this fact of bridge brain, right? Does anybody think they know what bridge brain means? Bridge brain? Yep, go ahead, Aaron.
Sorry, it's so, you know, you're talking all about the differences between men and women, and those are always generalities, right? So there are women whose brains might work like more similarly to a man's brain, like they might think more that way. And then same thing with men, like they might be more, like have more feminine ways of thinking than like the average man. But usually bridge brains are still like well within their own gender. Like
Yes.
like they're just on like a female would be more the masculine side than like, you know, the typical norm.
Yeah, so a bridge brain is exactly, Aaron. So thanks for contributing that. A bridge brain is that. So typically, I'm about to give you another word, right? And this word is called verbose. And you probably have heard of that word, verbose, right? VERBOSE, verbose. And it means somebody who can talk, right? They got a lot of words for you. And so typically, when you look at the impact of estrogen and testosterone, estrogen, and the way females' minds develop, their emotives. Oh, listen, listen. I don't know who wanted to be a neurosurgeon, but you about to get it. The verbal, the emotive part of their brain, the emotional part of their brain is highly linked to their verbal part of their brain, which means that, and this is why women win a lot of arguments, right? Like men, like we have good points, dog. Like don't give up on your points. We have really good points. We just can't get out as quick, right? We gotta go take a drive, walk around the house, cut the yard, do something, right? And then we come back and we say, oh yeah, I got it. But they've moved on. So the thing is that the connections between the verbose part of the brain and the emotive part of the brain is more connected at a younger age than girls. And so that's why, and it's why girls are more successful in school at a younger age, because teachers ask you to repeat what I said. Tell me how you feel. And if I am more connected if the emotive part of my brain is connected highly to the verbose part of my brain, then I am more likely to be able to verbalize that. And that's what schools want to hear. That's what teachers want to hear. Damn it, it's what parents want to hear. Did you hear me, boy? Did you hear what I said? What do you feel about this? And he's over there. He's trying to figure it out. Same thing when you do with the men in your life. Did you hear me, baby? You know, what can I do for you, right? So what can I do for you? So because these things are highly connected, girls are more successful in school because they're able to give the teacher what school think is valuable. Oh, it's about values. What school values, and come on, teachers, you can help me out with this one. Schools want to hear you repeat what they say. They want you to articulate what you've learned. They want you to be able to demonstrate it through verbal means, but also through written means, which is just a form of getting down what I think verbally. But if testosterone says that the emotive part of my brain and the verbose part of my brain develops at a younger age, and it doesn't really connect naturally unless there's some intentionality around developing that piece. And for those of you who were with me last year, when I talked about the digital boy, I said one of the things that you have to be intentional with your boys about is teaching them how to feel. How to talk about how they feel at a young age. You have to introduce them to the emotive part of themselves, because left unfiltered or left untended, it's more the visual. It's more the visual stuff, right? And so the verbose part of their existence takes a longer time to develop because of what testosterone does. I'm taking you guys a lot deeper than I wanted to, but I think you can handle it. So let's keep going. Anybody got any questions? Are you enjoying this?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, who is that? Let me see.
That's
Who's
Tanya Graves.
Tanya, you got a board right there. There you go.
Yes, I do. So you were talking about to look into. Do you have anything, or do you have any resources that you have available for us to look into for the estrogen and testosterone? Because I homeschool and I have 3 boys and 3 girls. So obviously, and we're all around one table. So if there's anything that we could look into, especially for homeschool moms, to like help balance or address our sons versus daughters.
Yeah, absolutely. What I'm
Besides deciding to get a low voice.
there you go. See, that alone made me pay attention to you, right? It's like, okay, let me see what she's talking about, because I may lose her in a minute. I put my email address in the chat. Follow up with that email, Tanya, and I'll send you some resources. But I do have some resources. You got to be willing to read, though. Okay. All right. Cassie, what you got, Cassie? I thought you raised your hand.
Sorry, I'm in California. So I am, hold on, I got a child that fell asleep. So moving. I was gonna say or suggest The Whole Brain Child. That book, I don't know if that really helped, because I have 2 older boys and a daughter. And with one of my children, he's more of a kinesthetic learner. And I think that's because of what you're basically describing. He needs to be hands-on, he has to be up. And he was really struggling in school, which is part of the reason why we decided to homeschool, because he needed to be up. He needed to go and run some laps while he's saying his letters and he's saying his words in order to really process the information. And then for the emotional aspect, The Whole Brain Child is a book, and it really gets into how to implement and teach our children emotional maturity.
And I've heard of both of those books, and I would second that recommendation, Cassie. Eliza, you have your hand up.
Hello.
Hello.
I heard you share that you present to schools, and I would just adore for you to come. I'm a 5th grade teacher. And so I've raised 2 boys, one of whom the system tried to fail, but I wouldn't let them. And so he's now an assistant PE teacher, by the way. So everything you're saying about him needing to move, even though he was more, he always did like to sit and read and things like that. My second son especially needed to move. And so I have always looked into these things. Don't burn your hand, please. I've always looked into these things as a teacher, but this is so needed widespread. How would I get a hold of you in regards to presenting in my school district?
Yeah, first you would have to fight with my executive assistant, Kat, who tells me that I'm booked through March of next year. But yeah, so you would have to talk to her. But no, that same email I put in the chat, just send me an email and we can work some things out. I speak to schools. I speak to schools and teachers and principals across this nation. There are school districts who are, asking me to consider moving and being their superintendents as well. So, in other words, they trying to steal me. They trying to steal me away from y'all. All right. So another question here, Angelica. And then Deborah. Oh, we got Deborah on the line. All right,
so my question is concerning this whole boy and like energy and like how they express it really different. So I'm a single mom, always since pregnancy. So I really don't understand like the guy in my son. And I'm like, so does the testosterone and whatnot have to do with like he thinks farts are funny, he burps all the time, and he's just like so like loud or like I don't know, anything like that, boogers, like he'll just laugh so hard and like he can't seem to know how to ground him for it or like get him in trouble, like sorry. He just like it's like impulsive, he can't stop. And he gets in trouble for it at school. So like any advice or maybe I'm the one who needs to change, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's a loaded question there, Angelica, and that's like 2 or 3 workshops that are not free. So, but but the answer to part of the question is absolutely yes. Testosterone definitely contributes to that. Like it causes you to move around, to kind of hit things, to fart and all those things, and think those things are funny. So yes, it is. I feel like you're asking me, how do I solve this, right? And I would offer to you that it's not something to be solved, but something to be contextualized. How old is your son?
He's in 4th grade. He's 9 years old.
So 9 years old. Yeah. So contextualizing it, it could work or it could not. But when I say contextualize, I'm talking about saying that, hey, look, John, I get what you're doing, right? Okay, it's funny to you, and that could be acceptable at home. Maybe you don't want to hear it, smell it, but how about you doing that in your own space, and do not do this in school? And this is why and this is where you have to introduce the social contract to them, right? It's like those things that are not typically normal in school, it's not going to be accepted the way it's accepted at home. I'm not going to stop you from farting. I'm not going to stop you from picking your boogers, right? But there are places to do things, and this is not the place, right? That's the parenting part. Like, okay, this is not the place to do it. In your room, at home, outside, could be a good place to do it. Also, how about we have a contract? Whenever you feel like that you want to fart, how about you raise your hand and allow me to excuse you, or allow me to excuse myself, right? And so there's something about mixing those approaches up that will allow him to be him, but also teach him just the rules to live in this society. Like he can't be a 13-year-old boy farting out in public, right? He will be single forever, right? So you have to teach that part to him. But they go through that. I got a nephew right now that's doing that. And when he comes to visit my home, because I'm not going to do that. I stop him at the door and say, look, I know you got this farting thing. I know this is what you like to do. I got a whole room for you to go do that in, right? And so you go do that in that room, and then we're done. Like you can go fart your head away in this room, right? And if you want me to hear it, then I suggest you record it and bring it back out, because I don't want to smell it as you do it. Like I figured out right? Because I'm not gonna say don't fart, right? Because he's 9 or 10, he's gonna fart. Don't pick boogers, right? If you want to do it for show, record it. You're really good with cell phones. Record it, bring it back, let me hear it. We can laugh together, but I ain't got to smell it, right? But that just takes, I mean, for you to do that, you have to understand the nature of boys. You know, some of you still have men in your life that do that. I'm not even gonna get into that conversation. So Deborah had, Elizabeth, I see you looking. She just implicated you. Deborah, what you got?
Well, hello, Mr. Dedrick. How are
Deborah, what's happening?
you? As always, great advice. But two things I wanted to just say is one, Mr. Dedrick has a wonderful book that he wrote. Hey boys, I'm talking. I forgot
Yeah.
Hey man, I'm just talking. And so tonight I want to make sure that at least 3 individuals are able to get that book. So our parent coordinators will take care of that. And then Eliza is in District 11. And I know that you do work in District 11.
You do.
So there may be opportunity just to add some additional components to what you're already doing in District 11 and maybe make her aware of that and how that could potentially impact her school in particular. So just wanted to say that.
No, thank you for that, Deborah. And it's so good to see you on the line. Always a pleasure. Yes, Eliza, we are in District 11. We work with West Middle School. We've been there for the last couple of years, have had tremendous results. They're changing the culture with the boys at West. And we had great results. I mean, great results there. And we're trying to get the rest of the district to take a look at our programming and get us out to other schools, because the previous administration was like, wow, you guys doing a great job. West is not the only school that can benefit from this in D11. Like there's a whole bunch of schools, but then we had all this changeover and everything that happened. And so the new administration may not know about who we are. But yeah, the book is called Hey Man, We Just Talking. And I can put that link in the chat for you guys to be able to get it on your own before we end. But it looks like that Deborah and the crew is going to make sure that there are some families that's going to get it. So are we ready to go on? We good? All right, everybody got their martini. So let's go. All right, so boys, let's keep going. Blah, blah, blah. So now let's talk about this. Male, female, what are the biological differences, right? So here's one, that the prefrontal cortex is not fully developed. And when we talk about the prefrontal cortex, we're talking about right here, right? The executive functioning part of your brain. It's the brain that causes you to make decisions. It's the part of the brain that causes you to be logical in thinking, right? When that's not developed, you have short attention span, you have impulsivity, right? So somebody mentioned how their son is very impulsive. Like part of that is just natural development. You have procrastination, disorganization. You know, hey, what'd you put your homework? I don't know. You just had it. I don't know where it's at. You know, where'd your trapper keeper at? Do we even use trapper keepers anymore? I just caught that when I said that. No, nobody has a trapper keeper. All right, is it on anybody's school list? Does it say trapper keeper at all? Some of you may not even know what trapper keepers are. My bad. So disorganization, poor judgment. Thanks for being with me, Lori. I appreciate that. Poor judgment, lack of empathy and insight. Now, let me give you some information for free. Because the prefrontal cortex is the executive functioning part of your brain that causes you to make logical decisions and not be so impulsive, right? Rental car agencies buy into that science. Can anybody make the connection? Can anybody make the connection? Rental car agencies buy into that science.
25, right? You have to be 25 to rent?
Say more, Elisa. Say more.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting there. You're warm.
Do they have higher rates, rental rates for men than women?
No, they don't. That's insurance companies.
Oh, true.
You're still getting there. All right. Let me tell you for the sake of time. Tiff, what you got? Tiff got something. What you got, Tiff? Okay. For the sake of time.
I was just gonna agree that with her, but yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm
Okay.
in
So,
I issue auto insurance policies all day. So
see, there you go, Tiff. There you go. She's going to validate what I'm saying. Like Dr. Sims is not just lying up here. So, here's the truth. One of the reasons, so your prefrontal cortex, that executive function that helps you go from being very emotional, emotive to very logical, doesn't develop until the age of 25, 26. Can somebody tell me who has rented cars before, what is the age that they want you to be to rent a car?
21.
25.
It's been a while since I was 26, but I think that might be when I rented my first car.
26, 25, 26. They say that because their bet is that you are less emotional and won't get into road rage. Now we know we know some 40-year-old people who are still doing road rage, and you may be one of them, but just know that you shouldn't be doing that. Like the science says that at this point, you shouldn't be flipping folks off and trying to race them and getting on their bumpers and cutting them off. Like, so if you're doing that, shame on you, okay? But the prefrontal cortex develops at that age, right? And that's why the rental car companies use that. It's also why, and Tiff can, possibly back this up, is also why insurance is higher the younger you are, right? When you start getting over 25, 26 years old, like insurance rates typically are a little bit better. Am I right, Tiff?
very true. Very, very true.
Very true. Very true. All right. And I don't know if this is something, Tiff, you can tell me this, but all throughout my life, the women in my life or around me have always had better insurance rates than me. And I don't know if it has anything to do with me being a boy.
It most certainly does, unfortunately. The rates than men.
See, right? Because we are trying to race our Mustangs up and down, the boulevard. So the prefrontal, so once that prefrontal cortex is fully developed, look at what happens, right? Focus improves, forethought improves, impulse control improves, organization, planning, judgment, empathy, insight. So, right? So those things improve once that prefrontal cortex is fully developed, okay? Now, I'm going to take you a little bit deeper here. This is not even part of the program, but I'm going to give you some more free information because I'm a giving person. Follow me. When you are in a traumatic state, when you're going through trauma, when someone has a gun to you, when a dog is chasing you, when somebody in your life calls you and say, we need to talk later, like, when you get in those trauma states, the ability of your prefrontal cortex, your executive functioning of your brain is blocked. Now, here's the physiology behind it. Stick with me now. I'm going somewhere. There's a part of your brain that's called the reptilian brain. It's the primitive part of your brain that is one of the first things that form when you are a child, when you're a fetus, an embryo. And there's a structure in it called the amygdala, right? Don't try to spell it. Just take my word for it. It is called the amygdala. And the amygdala is responsible for the fight or flight in your body, right? It's like your hands get sweaty, you get nervous, you get jittery, your eyes get jittery, like you can't really think, right? What happens is your amygdala sends a message to your hippocampus and says, oh my God, something's going on, right? Something's going on. And it releases epinephrine. That's the word, Dedrick. Epinephrine. It releases it to the hippocampus that says something is going on, like pay attention, right? Get ready. Prolonged exposure to whatever this threat is, whether it's the dog or somebody calling you, say, let's talk later, right? I got somebody to talk to you about. Prolonged exposure to that causes the hippocampus to release cortisol. Cortisol then washes over your prefrontal cortex. Well, what cortisol does, sneaky joker, is that it cuts off the executive function. There is no thought, there's no logic, it's fight or flight. Fight or flight. Why are you telling me this, Dr. Sims? I'm telling you this because there's a cultural point to this, and then there's just a human cultural point to this. And the human culture point to this is when your son is sitting in class and he is going through a traumatic experience, whether that traumatic experience is somebody's bullying him, the material that's being presented to him, he doesn't understand, and he's afraid he's going to be called on, the environment doesn't look like him, everything that you've taught him at home is being punished or penalized, like the farting, letting him fart, that kind of thing, right? He can't function. Like physiologically, he can't function. He can't regurgitate what 2 + 2 is, or 5 + 3 and carry the 1 divided by the 6. Those things require your executive function and your prefrontal cortex to be involved in order to successfully navigate those things. He can't function. So the question I have for you who are homeschoolers and those who you are highly involved in your education, involved in your son's education at school, how many classrooms or how often is your kid going through a traumatic stage where his mind is sending epinephrine to his hippocampus and cortisol is washing over to his brain and he can't function, and he's being judged by his ability to regurgitate or to be cognitive or to give answers to something correctly, and he doesn't give it because he's in a state of trauma? You know, I can just let that sit there for a minute. I can let that sit there for a minute. How many of you have gotten news while you were at work alluding to something that may be unfavorable? And your whole day is done. Like you can't even function anymore. Like you got to get to whatever that is. And that physiological response I just described to you happens to you as an adult, but it happens to kids a lot easier because their prefrontal cortex is not developed, and they can't even be emotive, and boys can't even be emotive about how they're feeling. So they're sitting suffering, and all you see is the manifestations of this ambiguous part of that existence. And the manifestations of that shows up as bad behavior, movement, disrespect. I mean, they're trying to communicate because they're dysregulated. Dysregulated minds produce dysregulated behaviors. That's why trying to solve this thing around school is complex. Solving relationship issues and communications between boys and girls sometimes can be very complex. It's not complicated at all. It's complex. It's complex because it involves so many different inputs and intersectionalities of life that we've been accustomed to and acculturated into as being normal. This is like a 4-workshop series, guys. I'm serious. It's 4-workshop series. It's a 4-workshop series. So I'm going to keep going. I don't want to turn you. Nobody's here. I'm just going to keep going. So now we're going to break out into groups. Right. So what I want you to do is the document that was emailed to you. It was emailed to you. Some of you may have printed it out. Melissa, can you share with me what you told them, what you guys told them about how to access this document? Or
I said that it was emailed to them, and that when they open it, it's going to be sideways, so they have to rotate the document so that it's straight up and down. And that would probably be better to print it if they didn't know how to do that.
Okay. For those of you who have the document and access to the document, can you like hit the little button on your thing to raise your hand so I can see the percent of people who actually have access to it? Thank you.
This brain gender differences thing?
Yes, that's what it is. Okay.
It's like one in each breakout room, so that'll work out.
Perfect. Okay, Aisha, so they figured it out. Okay. Mm-hmm. So this is what Jennifer says she never got it. Jennifer Ellsworth. I'm sure the team is on that, Jennifer. Raise your hand on the screen or on the thing if you do not have access to it and will not have access to it for this activity. Just about 4 people, 2 people. Okay.
So I'm trying to switch tablets so I can put it on one and pull it up on the other. So I'm going to be rejoining with another device.
Okay, Brianna, that's cool. All right, so this is what's going to happen. What I want you to do is for the next 5 minutes before we go into break, and this will give Brianna an opportunity to jump off and jump back on. But what I want you to do is I want you to take a look at that document. For those who are able to print it, you're going to have the best advantage, because what I want you to do actually is to take a look at that document and underline or highlight things that stand out to you about boys. Like when I say look at your aha moments and your ooh wee moments, it's like, that's why this is happening. Or ooh wee, why, my God, I know why, this is the deal. So what you're looking at is just some facts about boys and girls and what parts of the brain actually does. It's actually going to cause you to think about boys in your life, hopefully your own kids, right? You're like, this is why he does that. This is what's going on. So I'm going to cut my camera off. I'm going to put a timer on for 5 minutes, and I want you to spend time with that document by yourself for 5 minutes. For those of you who can't print it out, hopefully you have some paper around you where you can make notes and like make your aha ooey moments on your notes. And after 5 minutes, we're going to come back and I'm going to give you the instructions for the next part. Is anyone confused about anything I said? Cool. So while I'm gone for these 5 minutes, and Aisha, maybe you're the one that's in control of the groups. We're going to go into groups after I finish talking, coming back. So just giving you a heads up. All right. 5 minutes starts now. All right. Everybody's back. We're missing like 4 people, huh? I think last time I looked at the thing, it says 44, but no one knows Deborah. All right. So before we go into the next session, I'm going to drop, I know people keep asking me about the book. There's the link in the chat if you want to buy the Hey Man, We Just Talking book. And let me take a minute to explain what the book is. So Hey Man, We Just Talking is my 4th book, I think. 4th book. And it's a book directly to boys. So it's meant to talk to boys age 9 through 18. And it's 22 chapters. I call it conversations. And the conversations are about topics that boys typically struggle with at this age range, like love and friendships and identity and your relationship with your mom and conflict resolution and money, all of those things, right? So that's the link. If you want to buy a book, you can buy a book. I appreciate the support. But Deborah is going to buy some books for people. And I know in the past that Parents Challenge have been really good with buying like a number of books to give out. So some of you may already have it, but that's it's a really good book that has sold 15,000 copies since the pandemic, right? That's when I released it in the pandemic. So anyway, it's doing well. Get it. Thank you. All right. So how many of you had some aha moments and some ooh wee moments when you read those pages? Like put your hands up. Wave them like you just don't care. Try to send the link again. Oh, I'm sorry. I sent it directly to Aaron. All right. For some reason. There it is. Aaron's the only one that got the book. All right. So how many of you had some aha moments? Like, oh my God, okay. Now I see why I'm broken up. All right. Now I see why my son, now I see why my daughter. All right, cool beans, right? I want to somebody tell me, Dane had his hand raised up, some other folk had it. Tell me, what is it that one thing that you took from what you read, like your aha or your ooey moment? Can I start with you, Dane?
Sure. First up, I misunderstood the breakout room and we started going into this there. So a small group is going to hear the exact same thing I said in that group there. But I found it interesting when I read the testosterone portion, and you've talked about testosterone quite a bit, and we understand it's generally higher in males than in females. But what I found interesting is that it rises and lowers when you win or lose things, which can drive your competitiveness. And, for myself as a male, and then for my own son, you can just see it in how we play sports and how we do things. You know, it's much more like, you know, like my wife or my kids will win. They're like, yeah, you know, my son wins. He's like, yeah, you know, and I win and I'm like, hell yeah. You know, and then you want more. And it's like this drug. And I just want to keep going. And yeah, it makes you aggressive because I'm like, yeah, I want to win because I'm a winner. And, you know, and then when you lose, your testosterone goes down and you're like, oh man, I'm a loser. Anyways, I thought that was pretty interesting.
That's a great takeaway. I love it. I love it. Anybody else want to talk about some aha moments or some ooey moments that you took away as you looked through the different parts of the brain and saw what the impact was or how it's different for boys and girls? Anybody? There's gonna be some quiet groups because y'all about to.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Joe. Hey, Joe, you're not shopping anymore.
No, I'm not. I was out. I had to be out. My wife, the last minute, told me I was on this. You know, we had to switch nights, so I wanted to not take away from the meeting, but I wanted to apologize for that. Hope I wasn't distracting. Also,
at all, Joe, you good?
Okay. Also, I'm not techie. I'm on my phone, and I'm like kind of scared to try to get on the computer. I'll mess everything up. So I'll have to read that later.
Okay.
Okay. Just want to let you know. And I wanted to thank you, if I have another second, for what you're doing. I have a background in special ed. I was a special ed teacher. I worked with emotionally. They used to back in the day call them emotionally disturbed. I hated that term.
Yeah, I hated
10 to 1 boys to girls. It was horrible.
Yeah.
And everything you say, I'm going, thank you. So yes.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it, man.
Okay.
Thank God for teachers who work with our kids and need a little extra support. So thank God for those. Cassie, what you got? I feel like a radio show host. Cassie, what you got?
That's funny. So I got my husband.
There he is.
But it's actually not just from the paper, but what you were saying about how when
Cassie, you're on mute. You went to mute, Cassie.
Sorry, I touched my phone. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, Verizon.
All right. Hi, everybody.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Cassie. Okay, go ahead.
But it's not just about what you had written in the paper, but what you were talking about with the cortisol release and about how in certain situations, it creates basically trauma and then inducing cortisol, which is released in the body and does all these other things and can create all these things. So what I thought was really interesting about that is with context, we could be initiating that trauma with our kids and not even realizing what is going on for them. But when we can take a step back and say, okay, this could be basically initiating trauma for them by putting them on the spot or requiring them to basically regurgitate what they just heard. If we put them into a different situation and give them an opportunity to express that in a different way, it helps one take away from trauma, but then also that they will be able to, in a sense, develop more emotional maturity. Is that what you were basically saying? Did I hear you correctly?
Yeah, Cassie, you're spot on. You know, I have a grandson, and my grandson is 10 years old. His name is Kendall. He's in Houston. And when he comes to visit, like his mom, my daughter, I have to get onto her sometimes. Like, you're being way too hard on the boy. And it reminds me of when I was a kid. You've been way too hard on the boy, right? But I tell her, I said, let me try something, right? I said, Kendall, listen, here's what your mom is trying to tell you, right? I don't want you to tell me how you feel about it, because I don't expect you to like really tell me how you feel about it. And like, these are the literal words that I use. Kendall, listen, your mom is trying to say this, right? I want to know what you feel about it, but I also know that you probably are not going to be really good at telling me how you feel about it. So can you go in the room and draw or write down or create something that tells me how you feel about it without saying it? And Kendall will race up the stairs and he'll go into the room and close the door. And I don't like give him 5, 10 minutes. I give him the minute, the time he needs. And he'll come back out and he has, paper, and maybe there's a whole bunch of black marks or brown marks, or he's actually drawn some, he's actually has drawn something to where I, as an adult, can interpret what he's trying to say. So it gives me an insight into his communication style at his age, and then understanding the impacts of testosterone. Then I would say, Kendall, listen, from what you just gave me, here's what I'm getting. Tell me if I'm right. Like, I would literally have this conversation. These are words I use. Tell me if I'm right, Kendall. All these blacks scribbled across the line. You got some red in this. To me, this makes me think that you're upset about what's going on, or blah, blah, blah. And he'll say, I'm not gonna tell you I make him call me Jefe, because I don't. Maybe I do, maybe I don't, but I don't. So he'll say, yes, sir, that's what I mean. And then I will go talk to the mom. I'm like, he's upset about this, blah, blah, blah. So I'm teaching her how to get him to be true and honest with his emotion without being scared of her, afraid of her, but also teaching her mechanisms to get him to be honest. And over time, those feelings, like she can teach him how to be more verbose about them. But at the moment, like teachers, we're not in the business to play gotcha with our kids, right? We didn't get hired to say, you know what, I'm going to go in teaching profession just to play gotcha and be the hardest teacher. Like, that's not what we went into. We went into it because we wanted to help kids to develop understanding, to end up being a better citizen, to make their futures look like their dreams. And you can't do that by playing gotcha with them. But we can't do it with our kids either. But does it take energy and focus to learn these skills in order to be a better parent, or to be like a more in tune parent? Yes, it does. It takes these kind of things to be able to do so. And so that, to your point, that's you're spot on. So thank you for that, Tanya, and then we'll go to Angelica.
Okay, I have a lot of things, but I have a couple things I wanted to hit on. I think it's the parietal lobe.
Tell me what page. Look at my book.
Page 23, the very last one, parietal lobe.
Everybody go to that. The parietal lobe. Let's go with that.
Parietal lobe. In females, more data moves through than males. Male brains better at zoning out. Females tend to have more tactile sensitivity. And then I go back up to page 24 in the cortisol, and it says males and females both tend to have increased cortisol levels as a result of stress. But once the stressor is removed, male cortisol levels tend to decrease more quickly than females, who may tend to stress out about things longer. And then the thing that I noted to the side is laughing and the experience of humor can lower cortisol levels. So just like making, as a homeschool mom, and then just as a mom in general, like if I can make them laugh, even myself, find some way to bring laughter and joy about things, it's going to help lower that cortisol to where we can all function better. But then just to know that the boys are they're going to be better at just zoning out, even when you're like, come on, talk to me. How do you feel? Where the girls are going to be able to say, I'll tell you how I feel. Like, let me tell you. Right. And so just the beauty of those two things and being able to utilize that in my own home, as well as a homeschool teacher.
That is a great observation, Tanya. Thank you for pulling it out. And I want to take it a little bit deeper. Listen, guys, I'm going to give you a secret about women, right? And I could be too general about this. I'm sorry for those who are like, yeah, you're being too general. But it's also why women tend to hold grudges a lot longer than men. How many of you are still mad at somebody from high school? I didn't like her then. I don't like her now. I don't care what she's doing, what kind of job she got. Like, she's still I run across, like, my wife is still mad at somebody in 9th grade right now. I don't even know if this person even living, but she's still mad at this person. I'm like, you gotta release this. And this is like, this is part of why, right? But to Tanya's point, like, boys tend to come back down a lot easier. Now, for those who are teachers, watch this. Watch me tie this together, and I'm going to bring it to your house. How many times have you broken up a fight between a boy, first period, and their friends, third period? They're back friends. They're not even mad at each other anymore because they've been able to. This is gone, right? Or if you got two sons and they fighting at 9 o'clock, they cool at 11, right? Like they cool at 11. Matter of fact, they cool at 9:15, right? and they can't remember why they even fought. This is some of the reason why this is true. And unless you go through this kind of workshop and get this deep into the physiological parts of the way the brain works and what the impact of hormones, you will not know this. This is the kind of thing that I travel across the country helping teachers to understand. When they say, I want to create a great learning environment for my kids, and homeschool parents, I want to create a great learning environment for my kids. Yeah, but it's more than just about the content. Look at the Watkins family. Oh my God, where y'all come from? Look. Everybody find Elizabeth Watkins screen. Look at this. Look at all this testosterone in the room. That is a beautiful Christmas card picture. You should take that. Wow, look at those boys. Look at those boys. Those are some beautiful boys. Thank you for providing that moment for us, Elizabeth. And I don't know the guy's name because he's not on the screen. So, what's your name, sir? See, testosterone.
Name's Isaac. Yeah.
Give me the name of your boys, Isaac.
Andrew.
Hey, Andrew.
And I'm Liam.
Hi.
I'm Wyatt.
Hey, Wyatt.
One girl. One girl.
Oh, one girl.
Yep, one girl. Karis.
Yeah.
What's her name?
Karis.
Karis. How are you doing, Karis?
Good.
How are you surviving with all that testosterone in the house? I have mom. That's a beautiful family. Thank you guys so much for
Thank you.
Yeah, man. All right. So tell me, okay, now Tanya, thank you for that. We had one other hand up. Who's the other hand? No one? All right, cool.
Edric, I had one question. This is Jim.
Hey, Jim, how are you, man?
I'm doing fine. Hey, is there a way to slow down the cortisol switch? Because I have a little boy that can be perfectly fine and you just say something, I mean, just out of the blue and that switch will go off. And so I'm kind of trying to figure out how to deal with that.
Well, the only way to slow down the cortisol switch is to reduce the threat or the perceived threat. And sometimes people triggers are just a lot. I mean, it's different than other folks' triggers. Most of the times when people have immediate triggers like that, like just kind of like, oh wow, you went from 0 to 100 like just that quick, that it has something to do with some unresolved thing. How old's your son?
He's 10.
Yeah. So something is unresolved. Like it's just something that's unresolved that causes that 0 to 10 or 0 to 100 real quick and not kind of go through this process. And, unfortunately, like that's not my expertise. Like boys who come through our programs, we've impacted over 13,000 boys across the country who we recognize that in. Like we have partners that we escalated to like real professionals and licensed professionals who help work with families with that. But that's what they've told us as well. There's like, there's something unresolved and it takes just a little less spark to cause them to move really quickly, especially if the threat is not like a physical threat to where it's like, oh my God, my life's in danger. It's something that's unresolved. And again, I don't know your life. I don't know your son. I don't know what the last 10 years of his life looked like. Maybe that could trigger you to thinking like, okay, maybe there was something that happened that he's still dealing with. And because he's 10 years old and his prefrontal cortex is not developed, he's probably not able to verbalize that to you yet. Hopefully that helps. I mean, I'm stopping short of saying go see somebody, but I think, I would go talk to somebody to try to get some answers.
So can I answer?
Are you, Anastasia, are you a clinician?
Yeah.
There you go. All right. Yeah, you can answer. And then I'm going to Angelica. So go ahead, Anastasia.
Okay, I'll try to make it short. So it deals with dopamine and the amygdala. So your amygdala is your fight or flight. And so it wants to, it perceives some threat. So dopamine is, the shortest way I can tell you is you were 2 years old and I gave you a donut. And you were like, is this donut going to kill me, Ma? And you lick it and you're like, oh, it's good, right? And then you're instant, right? You don't have to ever have a donut again to know that it's going to give you this yummy high, right? And then maybe you go to like the best donut place ever, and now that donut is like the king of donuts, and now all the other donuts are like, nah, I gotta have like 4, but this one's good, so I can only have one of those, and like it gets me there, right? So eventually your dopamine expects this level of high. Well, eventually we can't sustain that. I mean, it's why porn works. It's why cocaine works. It's why it all works. You can't sustain it. And so at some point, the anger comes from the amygdala freaking out that it's like, I'm dying. I can't have my good donut. And like, really, it just can't get enough high. And so you have to figure out a way where the anger response and his anger does not then give him the fix, right? The cocaine fix of dopamine or the sugar high of dopamine. So it's an amygdala issue. It could be ADD, it could be ADHD, it could be trauma, severe trauma, where you walk into a room and like, normally this chair wouldn't bother me, but maybe I sat in that chair just like that 10 years ago and I fell. And so now every time I see that chair, I feel like I'm going to die in this room. So like, it could be all kinds of things. Definitely at 10, I would do a play therapist. There's lots of us out there, but that's like the short answer. It's an amygdala dopamine issue. And essentially at some point he learned, when I'm angry, it gives me this high, and I have to keep getting angrier to get this high, to keep feeling like I have enough, But anyway.
I totally understood what she said, Jim. Is it clear as mud for you?
Yeah, it's clear. Thank you.
I just got to make sure. So the Watkins have put their kids away, and so I can say this. I just I'm thinking about porn and donuts at this point. So she said porn. But
sorry,
remember,
I got your visual dopamine working on its own. My bad.
I got it. For those of you who sat through the digital boy with me, remember I talked about that. I talked about reason why this is dangerous for boys to just be in the video game world, and you allow them to be there and you use it as a babysitting tool. It's because boys, testosterone causes us to focus on the visual, right? Oh God, she's beautiful. I don't know anything about her. She could be crazy, but she is so beautiful, right? It's like we are attracted initially to the visual. And if you allow your young man to exist in this visual world, right, but also get his high from what he sees, dopamine is the feel-good hormone. I need more. So they spend more time on the videos, more time in the metaverse, more time like in these spaces that give them small wins, WINS, right? And so they just eat that up. And if you don't be intentional about introducing them to the emotive part of who they are, then the visual will always be what they will be about. They'll be less verbose. They won't talk as much. They'll be quiet. Like the social life will suffer, because left alone, testosterone causes the visual part and the non-emotive part to not develop. I hope that makes sense. And maybe Anastasia can have a workshop and explain to you herself. But that's what's so dangerous about it. So let me go to Angelica before I put you guys back in the room. Angelica?
Oh, hi.
Thanks for your patience.
Oh, no worries. I halfway forgot what I was going to say, but
All right, well, be quiet. No.
no, I wanted to piggyback off of what Cassie was saying and your response to that, like their like trauma and then like in class, like trying to regurgitate and all that, but like they have all that chemical. I forgot what term it is. I'm not a science person, so, but are there perceived threat? I don't know, all of that. So I was just thinking, like, I just love that you teach classes that, because my son has been like in 5 different types of school: private school, charter school, public school, Head Start, all of that. And I especially see that with like in charter schools where teachers don't have to have, or I think in the state of Colorado, like they don't have to have a early childhood education degree. They can have a degree in whatever, and then they just teach off of what the training of is. And then so they just expect this cookie cutter classroom where it's just like sit, and be quiet and called on and all of that. And then me as a parent, when I'm trying to advocate for my child at times, and I kind of explain that without the sciency of it, I'm just like he's embarrassed, like you caught him, like that's not the way he learns, like you're being too hard. Like, I know you're an ex-military, but like my son's not in JROTC. Like when I try as a parent to say all that in my non-sciencey verbiage, I'm often looked at as, oh, you're being too soft on him, or you're just making excuses for him, or he needs to learn. Like, I don't know, that basically they're just saying I'm completely wrong and it's their way or no way. So I don't know.
That's a whole different workshop.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm just saying thank you, I guess, for
No, I get it.
Yeah.
No, I totally get it. But what you're saying is like 92% correct. So it is. And you know, parents, you should be the one that knows how your kids learn best. But unfortunately, a lot of parents don't pay it. Listen now, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this. But unfortunately, we don't pay attention to enough to our kids in the right ways to actually understand how they learn. And the reason why I'm saying this is because teachers, like parents, typically teach and parent the way they were taught and parented. That's a whole different workshop, right? Like you typically teach the way you were taught or teach the way that you learn, right? So maybe you're a visual learner and you like to see things in front of you. And so teachers will kind of do that, right? Thinking that this is how all kids learn, and then it's not, right? Maybe you have some teachers, some kids who are auditory, right? They need to hear it, right? Some teachers who are visual, they need to read it, right? And we typically parent and teach the way we were taught and parented. And unfortunately, Angelica, what happens is that when you go into these classrooms to have these conversations with these teachers and talk to them about how your kids learn and blah, 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 like they're only seeing it through one lens. They're either seeing it through, they're seeing it through a couple of different lenses, but it's still one lens. One lens could potentially be the way that I was taught to teach, lens one, the way that I learn, lens two, and the way that I think life should happen, and I'm not even a teacher, lens three.
The other is like, Angelica, no offense, like we're just dumb parents, right? So like I'm a professional, I have 15 years dealing with all of this. And I go to my daughter's 504 meetings for her ADD and they treat me like I'm an idiot. So, but then her therapist and I make plans and her therapist says what I could say. And they're like, oh yeah, we'll try that. And they put it right in her 504 plan because the professional in the room said it. And even though I have the same degree and the same credentials, I'm not the professional in the room. I'm just the mom. And so they're just like, yeah, whatever she says, you know? So I don't think it has anything to do with you not having the right words. I think just in the educational environment, they're like, man, they're just a mom. Heck with them. Like, but when I walk into 504 meetings as the professional, I can say the same things and they take what I'm saying like the word of God. But in my own kids' 504, they just think I'm an idiot. Like, and my knowledge goes with me. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's you. I just think it's the pretense that like, oh, mama bear, here we go, you know? But
so Anastasia, because everybody's not an educator and don't understand our jargon, I'm going to give you an opportunity to explain to everybody what a 504 is, because they may not have kids who have 504 plans.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's like I explained 504 is an IEP. So we're on a road and
if you're going to use IEP,
different road to go to the same grade or the same street. And a 504 is maybe I just need a step stool to get there, but I can see on the same road. So like 504 for my child, ADD, like she is brilliant. She can stay in the classroom. She doesn't need special education, but she needs like fidgets and special chairs and like extra bathroom breaks and like protection when she loses her impulse control and hits somebody, which is why she's suspended now. So like it's almost like we need to edge up. It reminds me of the equity where there's like a fence and everyone's different heights and they just need different tools to kind of just survive in the same classroom, versus individual education plan is usually kids can't even handle that and they need like a whole nother setting to like get to the same goal. But anyway, that's the easiest way.
Yeah. And then another easier way, even easier than that, is 504 has anything to do with physical disabilities or physical challenges, right? If your son goes out and breaks his arm playing baseball or playing football, and goes back to school and needs extra time or accommodation because of a broken arm, he can qualify for 504 for a temporary, until that gets well, right? An IEP, individual education plan, is totally different. Like, it has to do with cognitive disabilities and some other stuff that could be subjective. But I got to put Aisha to work, right? So what we're going to do is that I want you to go into groups. Aisha's going to pair you up or triple you up or quad you up, depending on how she feels. And you're going to have these conversations with each other for not 10 minutes now, but 5 minutes. You're going to have these conversations with each other about what you saw in the reading and how, and kind of how this resonates with you, right? So what this looks like is, oh my God, Stephanie, this is what I saw. My kid, Wyatt, right? From the Watkins family, my kid's Wyatt does this, and the amygdala and blah, 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 blah. Like, you guys are going to talk to one another about what you've learned in the research for 5 minutes. And then Aisha's going to bring you back. So Aisha, you can whisk them away like Star Trek if you want to. Beam me up, Scotty. I'm back. We back, and we're over time. So what I want to do as we leave is hey, Brienne, she has her son, I see down there. Yeah, man, we got some waving going on. The whole crew. There we go. Watkins, you see what you guys have done? You guys have inspired family moments. Anybody else got a family they want to put on screen? I love it. I love seeing the families. So Brienne, now you got to introduce your people. Angelica, I see your son right there. Oh, this is beautiful, man. This is
All
beautiful.
right, so this is my oldest daughter, Madison.
Hey, Madison.
You're not the youngest. This is my middle son, Carson. And the baby is Mason.
And I have to win.
There it is. That's the Brienne family. Look, there you go.
Yeah, my husband just brought them back home, so of course they've got to come see mom.
Of course they do. Rowena, who do you have there with you?
This is my grandson, Frank.
Frank. Hey, Frank, how are you doing?
Good.
Good, man. Look at that smile, Frank. Francis is the gangster name for that. Good to see you, Frank. Good to see you, Frank. Cassie, who do you have with you, Cassie?
My name is Noah. And
Noah.
Yes, he's the oldest.
I love it. Noah said, you don't have to answer for me, Mom. I got it.
Yeah, my little is sitting with his dad.
Love it. Eliza, who do you have with you?
Okay, they had to make an appearance, so these are the triplets.
Triplets, wow.
So, yep, you gonna tell them your name?
my name is Ellie.
Eleanor, Ellie, yep. She was, okay, wait your turn. She was born first. Vera Lynn, you getting shy. Come on. Give it pretty, okay. Vera's too shy all of a sudden, and then, here's Vera Lynn. Oh, keep your, okay, we just had bads, I'm sorry. Vera, hurry, there's people on the thing. There's Vera Lynn.
All right, Vera Lynn.
And then this is Julie.
What's up, Jules?
And then I have an 18-year-old son and a 14-year-old son and a 7-year-old father. And that's really who I came to this for, so that I could be a better partner with each of them. And I feel like men are underrepresented and supported in this world right now. And so I just wanted to come try to get some help for them and for my students. So thank you so much.
Love it. Thank you. And Matthew would agree with you. I see him shaking his head over there. Hey, Stephanie, who you got?
This is Josiah, and he goes by Jojo.
Jojo. Yeah. How are you doing, Jojo?
Good.
Good, man. So good to see you. You're a handsome cat.
Say thanks.
Thanks.
Good stuff. Jim, who do you have, Jim?
To my right is Faith.
What's up, Faith?
Ashlyn. And move over, John.
Hey, John.
So
these are handsome and beautiful individuals, man. Thanks for bringing them into the world, being a part of that. I appreciate that. Absolutely. Let's see, who am I missing here? You got Angelica. Who's that you got with you?
It's Elijah.
I'm Elijah. And here's our cat.
The two boys in my life, Jackson and Elijah.
Those are the co-workers. Well, good stuff, man. Let me switch to the other screen. So who's? Oh wow! Look at the Graves family over here, man. Oh my God! Talk to me, Tanya. Who do we have on? Who do we have?
Who do we have? Tell them who you are.
Yes.
You gotta
Look at the mirror or look at the camera.
We have Augustin, Gus, and who are you?
Max.
Hey, Max. Mad Max.
Hello, I'm Joe.
Hey, Joe. What's happening?
I don't know.
I don't know. Go ahead. Mike. Go, Mike.
My name is Mikey.
Mikey.
Michael Ann, but she goes
Michael.
by Mikey.
No, I love Mikey.
She does too.
I love Mikey.
My name's Bella.
Hey, Bella. Bella means beautiful. Hey, Bella.
Amen.
Yes.
And I'm Carlton. I'm the father of the crowd.
What's up, Carlton? How are you, man?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sims. This has been great.
No, absolutely, man. I love it. I love the Parents Challenge crowd, man. Always, always. Thank you for bringing them on. Joe, who you got, Joe? Joseph. Oh, I thought you had somebody with you. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. That was your bicep, your tremendous bicep. My bad. That was a whole different individual. Heather, who is the curly-haired, beautiful kid next to you?
Dominic.
Dominic. Even have a beautiful name, so you're gonna be trouble.
Yes, he is.
Good stuff, man. I love seeing Anastasia. Who is that?
You want to see your name? You wanna say hi? What's your name?
Adelaide.
Adelaide.
Natalie?
Adelaide. Like Adelaide,
Adelaide.
Australia.
Anastasia and
Other
Adelaide.
people hear their names and they're coming to say hi.
This is
Say hi. This is Paisley. This is our Henri middle child.
Don't call it
Isaac,
names.
our only boy.
Hello.
Hello.
We have another girl. We're 4 months along, but we know it's a girl, and this is our poor lone boy.
Got it. Got it.
I want to do it quick.
So Elizabeth, and my man Isaac, right?
Yeah, say hi.
You see what you guys started? You guys started this whole family thing, man. This whole
Say hi
family.
real quick.
Just me.
Joe, who is that, Joe?
Wait, am I on?
Yeah, you're on. Who is that?
There's Michael.
What's up, Mike?
He's my 16-year-old, and Joshua. Come on, don't be shy. Are you in the picture? Say hi.
What's up, Josh? How are you, man?
Good.
Good.
Yeah,
good.
he's my 14-year-old.
Yeah, you got
15. Just turned 15. Well, I'm sorry.
You got two Justin Biebers there.
Oh no.
Look, man, this has been a great night, and hopefully, like the last group was meant for you to connect with each other and kind of talk about learnings. This has been a great night. You know, I look forward to being with you guys tomorrow. We're going to talk about some literacy stuff tomorrow, but tonight has been great. And I want to turn it back over to the Parents Challenge team. I think they may have a survey for you to do or to draw blood or something they're going to ask you to do. But do me a favor. If you learned something new tonight, raise your hand, put the thing on the thing, like click the thing, make the thing happen. If you learned something new tonight, like if you walking away going, oh my God, yep, I got some new learnings there. I appreciate everything. Jennifer, thank you. Matthew, thank you. Yep, I see it. Kamala Singh, you didn't say anything tonight. Talk to me. How are you, Kamala? Are you Kamala or are you somebody else?
Sorry, that's my wife's name. I'm Naba.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
I'm here for my boys. So.
You were quiet tonight. What are your boys' names?
Jonathan.
Got it. Love it, man. Thank you guys so much for giving me space in your life tonight. I really look forward to tomorrow, and I'll turn it back over to the Parents Challenge team for them to give you some goaways. I put a link in the chat of the book for those of you who want to buy the book. It's in the chat, so feel free to do that. And now I'll mute myself while the Parents Challenge team takes over again. Thank you.
Thank you, Dedrick. That was amazing. Wonderful presentation. I learned so much.